while hoping that my camera would come online, but again, I think that the system is overwhelmed, and my internet connection is underwhelmed. So I was unable to get to you, but I am here now, and hopefully you are here now, and I can see any commentary you might have or any questions you might have. We're going to be talking today about processing everyday grief in times of trauma, in times of cultural trauma. So definitely tell your friends, make sure you get in on this conversation, because this is really important for what's happening in our world today. The first thing that I want to say is that we consider hi Frederick, hi Melanie, thank you so much for being here. We consider what is happening, this pandemic, we consider it a cultural trauma, and we would call it a global cultural trauma. It's something that everyone that's alive today is now experiencing, and everybody has a different relationship to that. So there are children who are, ages under 5 or 6, who don't really understand what's going on, but their whole world has changed. There are the older toddlers and adolescents who understand what's going on, but don't really have the words to communicate their emotions. Then we have our 20 somethings to 30 somethings who may not in your 20s and in your teens, you have this really unique worldview, which is very powerful. It's very self-empowered, and you really believe that you can control your world, or you are really seeking to control your world. And then we have, your 30s and above, who may or may not have some information or experience in navigating their own grief responses. So when everyone is experiencing a cultural trauma, there's the information that we can visibly see about that. And then there's a whole bunch of information that we don't see, but we feel. Okay. And that's really what we're talking about today, is the everyday grief that everyone is experiencing, whether people know about it. Part of what's causing this trauma can be a daily focus on fear and the unknown. Maybe many of you, almost all of you, have experienced an abrupt financial change, emotional confusion, or chronic anxiety, and then ultimately from a lack of coping skills on how to manage all of that. So it's during these times that we need to find ways to be self-sufficient, how we can, and then to share our resources when it's needed. Stress during these times is going to reveal itself in many forms. And so it's really imperative that you be open to the process and embrace it. That's going to be your biggest ally, is to understand that everyone is going to experience everyday grief, and sometimes grief every day, and what you're going to do in advance, like how you're going to think about it before it hits you. The one thing that comes up for a lot of people is many people have been taught that having strong emotions is bad. You're crazy. You're out of control. You are weak if you show emotion. There are a lot of different cultural belief systems and gender belief systems that people have that already program us to resist feeling sad, feeling angry, and allowing those feelings to actually move through us. We do things to resist them, right? One of the first chat casts that I did, we talked about our everyday addictive behavior. One of the things that we do to resist our emotions or our grief is to eat too much, drink too much, or find other ways to bring our attention to something else. Okay. What we're talking about here today is learning how to allow those experiences of grief to come, to experience them, and then to have them move through us and create a new moment after them, where anytime you cry for 10 minutes or more, it actually changes the neurons in the brain, right? It actually changes. Hi, Holly. Nice to see you. I just saw you arrive. Anytime you cry for 10 minutes or more, you actually change, your brain changes. And what it's doing is it's shifting your relationship to the information that triggered the emotion in the first place. So it either helps you to process and accept what the information is. It could be a memory that is actually erased in its original form. Uh, or like I said, you could be creating a new relationship to that same information. But either way, there is an actual change in your brain that happens when you allow yourself to cry. So uh, there are many different grief responses that people have. Crying is one of them. Anger is another. Maniacal language. That's funny. Maniacal laughter can all happen. Has that ever happened to you? That used to happen to me all the time in math class. Or anytime it was the middle of the night and you were having a slumber party, or a time that you're supposed to be really quiet, and they say, don't, be quiet. Shh, don't want anybody to know you're up. And you're like, hee hee, and you get the giggles, and then you start giggling, and then you can't stop giggling. So maniacal laughter is actually a grief response. It's a way in which we move the stress out of our physical body, through us and into the ethers. So it's really important that you recognize that it's normal to have multiple episodes of crying, anger, or maniacal laughter, right? What anger looks like is you get really frustrated. You want to break or throw something or have a tantrum. What's important to remember when you get angry is to not point it at somebody who's in your vicinity. If you are free and welcome to experience the anger that you're having, because this is a frustrating experience where we are not able to control what is happening. And so anger is the emotion that actually comes before grief, right? Oftentimes we are suppressing our grief, therefore we are angry. So when you allow yourself to have anger, go into another room, scream, yell. Eventually that's going to turn into a cry. Get it out, and then go back into the situation you were in. Always, anytime you've allowed a grief response to move through you, there's going to be a calm after the storm. So letting yourself feel whatever it is that you feel, giving yourself permission, knowing that it is normal, knowing that it is how it needs to be in order to remain balanced on a day-to-day basis, on an hour-to-hour basis. So knowing that that is the case, allowing it to happen is going to be the best thing that you can do for yourself. The next thing that I want to talk about here is that there is the energy that you know about, and then there's a whole bunch of emotional energy that you do not know about. That means that there are billions of other human beings right now on the planet suffering and responding to their suffering. They are responding to their inability to control their environment. And any person who is not comfortable in feeling that emotion, or who is unable to feel that emotion, right? We probably got, a million healthcare workers right now, first responders, police, fire, ambulance, all of the emergency responders and medical workers on any level. They do not have the time to feel their feelings, and that emotional energy is going to be farmed out to those of you sitting at home who may be extra sensitive. So it's really important to remember that on the psychic airwaves, all of those things that people feel, it's going to get farmed out to people who are able and in a safe position to feel it. Does everybody pick up what I'm putting down on that? Because that is really, really important. It's very important to understand that. Okay. So I really wanted that to sink in, because there are two levels of it. There's what you know that you feel, and then there's all these feelings that happen that you don't know about. Okay. It's energy that comes from other sources in your environment. And to let yourself uh, to know that exists, and to let yourself um, process that, and not feel bad about it. Sorry about that. I am letting out the little munchkins. I have as if anybody's seen any of my broadcasts previously, I am um, taking care of a couple of little dogs, and they get rambunctious, so I had to get them out of the house. Okay, so back to back to business. Okay, we've got a few extra people here. Hi, Carl. Melanie, thank you for your response. I appreciate that. Okay, so now that we've got that covered, the next thing that's really important here is let yourself let go of shame about feeling strong emotion. Let yourself let go of shame about feeling strong emotion. We all have egos. And by egos, I mean the part of ourself that is strong enough to sometimes override some of our feelings, right? It's our etheric body, and its main directive is to keep us alive. And there have been times on the planet when feeling emotion is such a distraction that it leaves you vulnerable to losing your life. Right? That's we again we see that in our policing systems and our militarized systems. Those are the things that they're taught, because they see it as a vulnerability. And uh, I think for many, many decades it has been a vulnerability, but today we are living in a very, very different time when we have the ability to be emotional, to experience an emotion, to allow that emotion to clear way so that we can see any situation more clearly. We are able to function through emotion. And that really is a new concept for us in the last few decades. So get on board with that. It's not shameful to feel. If you are in a position where you are in a safe place to feel, right? You need to let yourself feel. And the better, the more you, or I want to say the better you get at that, which means the more comfortable you are with allowing your emotion to move through you, uh, the safer you will be, the more present you will be, and the less care you'll have to take when an emotional response comes up. I'm a professional empath. I cried every single day of my life up until like 3 years ago. Now I slightly whimper on occasion, but it's nothing like it has been in the past. And there was definitely a time where I became really good at having an emotional response to something and still be able to multitask. So, it really has to do with your ability to feel at ease with the action that you're taking. And emotion can very much be an action, meaning you are allowing tears to move through you. You might be screaming, you might be, moaning, wailing. Those are all part of the process, and it actually moves energy out of your body. So, your first step is if you're new to the idea, right? Move yourself out of a situation where you don't have to do it with a witness or an audience, and scream, cry, do whatever you need to do, and then go back into the situation that you were in. If you're driving, it happens all the time. If I could see the hands raising out there, I know every single one of you has had an emotional upheaval while driving in the car, because it's actually a great place to cry. I've got some of my best psychic visions while crying in the car. Now, again, for the non-professionals out there, you may not be in a safe position, so you might want to pull the car over and sit and have your emotional moment, right? Others can allow the emotion to move through by still watching and paying attention to the road. But again, it's you trusting yourself First of all, by not shaming yourself, by thinking of yourself as weak, or by thinking of having a strong emotion as inappropriate. So, does anybody have any thoughts or ideas on that, or commentary, questions? I just wanted to throw that out there. So, whatever questions you have, I'll get to them. Um, when a strong, well, I just mentioned this, but when a strong emotion arises, the best way to handle it is to allow it. If you are in a circumstance where you're with a bunch of people, then you can excuse yourself and go to the other room. Say you're sitting with your significant other or a family member and you get emotional, right? It's a natural response for people to want to console us by saying, "Oh, don't cry, don't cry." But you need to cry, and it's imperative that you cry. You crying is going to remove your anxiety. It's going to create a whole new space for a new perspective on whatever your dilemma is, and you're going to feel more in control of your present environment. So, if you're around somebody, you can say to them, "I really need to cry, and I'm going to cry now. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, I will go to the other room." Right? But you need to cry and you need to claim that. And if other people have a problem with it, it's other people's problem. It doesn't have to be yours. And don't let it be yours. Okay? Like I said, just move yourself out of the situation, or let them know what you're doing. There are a lot of people who are comfortable with emotion. And so, hey, I'm really, I'm really angry right now and I just need to go scream about it. I'll be back. Okay. Uh, that brings me to something really important. During times of cultural trauma, it's common for grief to be triggered by situations that we cannot control, i.e., the pandemic. People are up in arms right now because they feel like the government, and I'm doing that in air quotes, the government is telling them that they cannot go out and they cannot do X. But the truth is, we don't need to be doing X. We need to start being accountable for what is the right choice, not just for us, but for everyone. Right? The more things get started back up, the bigger the pandemic is going to be and the more people it is going to touch, and we know that. So don't make your anger and frustration of the lack of control, don't make it about someone else or what someone else is doing to you. Don't do that. Don't transfer that energy onto someone whom you feel safe with. That's another really important common occurrence. Right? I had a client who has got a young daughter, and she's like, "I don't know why she's acting out all the time now." And I'm like, "Well, of course she is, because she is 7 years old and she does not know how to respond to the ways in which her world has changed and the way it's changed her parents, whether those changes are visual or they are psychic. There has been a deep sense of change in the home, and she's responding to that. And she might be acting out to you because she knows you're not going to leave her. You're not going to retaliate to her or, to her, at her. You're not going to retaliate. So what people naturally do is they get angry at the person whom they love the most, who they have the most sense of safety with, who they are the most comfortable with. Right? There's a lot of counselors out there right now who are getting their asses handed to them by their clients. And again, it's a natural thing that happens. It's called transference. There's lots of types of transference, but this is when you take one emotion and you make it about something or someone else that's not accurate to the reason you're actually feeling what you're feeling, right? And when we feel we cannot control our environment or our circumstances, that puts us in a position to unconsciously transfer that energy onto a situation that we feel better putting it on, or we can name. Right? A lot of people don't know that there are billions of people right now suffering, and so there's a psychic energy to that. That everyone who is open to that will feel it. or feel some of it. So be really clear about the emotions that you feel. It's okay to be angry, and it's okay to say, you know what? I need to get angry. I'm going to go in the other room and scream and yell. No, it's not personal to you. Let's say someone is mean, rude, or disrespectful, okay, because they're angry. It's really important to be patient, right? But if somebody's really, trying to hand your ass to you, that's so funny to say that. If somebody is really raking you across the coals, you have a right to take your pointer finger and put it up in the air and say, "Stop. I know you're frustrated, and I know you're feeling angry, but you don't have a right to talk to me that way." And sometimes we can't get that whole sentence out. So all you have to do is say, "No, mm-mm. You're welcome to have your emotions in the other room." Right? It's okay to set boundaries. What oftentimes happens is, somebody gets really, really angry, they unload on you, and then you end up sad or upset or crying, and then everybody leaves or everybody stays, whatever happens. And then maybe 2 hours later, you are resentful because that person unloaded on you. It's really important. A part of everyday grief is something that we call layered grief. That means every single time something happens, let's say we watch the news and we see that there are, 10,000 more deaths today than there were yesterday. And then we see in our city that we're not, your city's not going to open back up, or your city is closing, or whatever's going on in your city that, another thing you can't control. And then let's say your money from the government didn't come, or your job isn't going to open up, right? So each one of these things is an assault to your psychic well-being and to your emotional body. Every single time one of those things happen. And let's say you choke back one, and you choke back another, and then you choke back another. By the time you get to the second, third, fourth, or fifth, there is going to be a grief response. Oftentimes a rageful grief response. And like I said, it's really common to have that pointed at another person. So if that happens and you find yourself on either side of it 2 or 3 hours later, it's imperative that you clean it up. And this is what I mean by that. If you're the one that is coming into the recognition that, "Oh my God, I just unloaded on my loved one, and I said some things that were hurtful, or I would just spoke to them harshly." You know what? It's okay. Go back into the situation and say, "Hey, look, I'm really sorry. I wasn't able to control that, and I appreciate you being there for me, and I'm really sorry, and I'm gonna work on not doing that. I'm gonna find a way to figure out how to preempt that and not do it again and again. I'm sorry for doing that." And if you're the person who is it that was unloaded on, take a couple of hours. Do not sit in the resentment. As soon as things calm down, go back into the situation and say, "Hey, so and so, I really love you, but in the future, I need for you not to unload on me like that, because I can't have it. I don't want it. I can't have it. And it doesn't mean I don't love you, but I can't have that." Be willing to talk it out, because when you do that, it frees everyone from it. A person who holds on to an action done to them, or a psychic assault, an emotional assault, when you hang on to that, those load up as well, and then eventually you're going to load up and do uh, unload on someone else, or uh, give in to self-harm. That's another thing that we do. We go eat our troubles away, or drink our troubles away. Something, uh, anything to distract us. And this is where. Thank you, Carl. I'm glad. Carl says that this is healing, and that's exactly what I was hoping would happen. The other thing, the final thing that I want to say, because this all tags into our addictive behavior, and our addictive behavior is the things that we do over and over and over again, getting a result that we are not expecting. Like we do something and we think it's going to change things. right? Or we think it's going to make us feel better, right? When we try to distract ourselves with a substance or whatever your distraction of choice is, this is Facebook, and there are a ton of people out there trolling for emotional connection. So there are a lot of, folks out there dropping love bombs and, hitting you up, giving you the instant message saying, hi, right? And they're trying to create a connection to you, because that's what they do, is they distract themselves with any kind of emotional attention that they can get, or any kind of affection or attention at all, right? So those are all things that we do that aren't necessarily helpful to us, and they're not authentic to other people. And they are distractions. They are not cures. When you drink, every drink you have, it distracts you from what the reality is, but it does not change the reality, nor does it change your awareness of the reality. A lot of people think that doing drugs or drinking will actually change your relationship to the reality. But all it does is it amplifies the reality on some level for you. You might have a respite where you're just not focusing on the reality. Having instead of having just one drink, having two or three makes you not think of the news that you watched all day for an hour or two until the buzz wears off and you feel sad again or anxious again. And all of that diminishes you physically, emotionally, and psychically. So, if you drink, have one, have two, have enough to make you cry. Actually, that's that. I didn't say that. Don't have enough to make you cry, because that could be a whole bottle for somebody. So, but my point is that really monitor your desire to drink and eat to cover up how you're feeling. Right? Get to the feeling first, and then make your choices about the different things that you want to use to distract yourself. Okay, so that's what I have for you today. Is there anybody out there who's got a question for me, or a thought? Anything that anybody can come up with? Everyday grief is something that every single person is going to have to deal with, and especially now. When we use the hashtag, we are all in this together, we are literally all in this together. Meaning we are having different experiences of the same event, and we're all relating to that in the best way that we can. And I just want to leave you with do your best to be patient with yourself and with other people. Love yourself and be open-hearted to others. And I really appreciate you tuning in. Hi, Sherry. Nice to see you. Okay, the last call for questions. I hope you're typing. If anybody's out there typing quick, because I'm about to sign off. Okay. By all means, you can send me private messages with questions, and I'll try to include them in the next chat cast. And again, thank you so much for being with me here today. And know that you are not alone in this process. I'm with you, and I'm glad that you're here, and I believe in you. So have a magnificent day, and we will see you next week, Friday at noon. Thank you. Tracee Dunblazier signing off.